Hello Internet, I'm Jackie Fox. Welcome to another episode of Fox Talks. And I can't help but notice that my channel still does not have 1,000 subscribers. So I did a little research on what makes the internet and YouTube tick, and what kind of videos tend to get the most views. My conclusions are the following. Lists are incredibly popular. Some channels with low effort lists have millions of subscribers. Another thing that's incredibly popular online is shorter content. I am somehow incapable of making a short video, but I'll make it short somehow. And then the third is probably conservative talking points, because whether they're wrong or right, they spread like wildfire, man. And some of the conservative commentators have either the biggest news channels in the world or some of the largest YouTube channels in the world. So, I figured that the right thing to do would to make a short list of all the times that conservatives are wrong about economics. And boy, let me tell you, it was hard making this a short list, but I put in the work. So, typically for people around my age who think about conservatives, we don't think about economic conservatives. We think about conservative culture warriors. You know, the kind of people who tell us that Starbucks is trying to kill Santa Claus, or that the left is now canceled America's first transgender American, Mr. Potato Head, or they're telling us that slavery is wrong, actually. Wait, what? I agree with that one. Okay, cool, moving on. They tell us that the publisher and owner of Dr. Seuss's work must continue to put out racist elements of that creator's library against their will, which seems an awful lot like I have a bit of a guilty habit, and that is that sometimes when I'm stuck in the car alone for a long time, I like to turn on conservative radio and just yell at my speakers. It's entertaining, at the very least. But I've noticed some really wild things about conservative commentators. They talk a lot more about economics than typically the people you see on TV who are making the aforementioned will this be the year that Starbucks will finally kill Santa Claus and baby Jesus type arguments. Instead, they just list things that are inflating in price. That was really, I thought it was conservative spoken word poetry. You know, it's just like apples, bacon, houses. Just like, what did I tune into exactly? But it's surprising that they actually seem to be more economically illiterate than their television companions. Although, arguably, the reason that their television companions stay away from talking about conservative economics is that conservative economics has been proven to be so ineffective at doing everything but creating income disparities and income inequality, as well as making the rich richer and the poor poorer. I mean, they really don't have a leg to stand on. That's why they shifted to the culture wars, because their economics are absolute shit. But I'll give you a hint. When you elect a Republican into any office, they're not going to be there to keep Santa Claus and baby Jesus safe from Starbucks. They're there to do conservative economics. So it behooves us to understand exactly what those conservative economics that they plan to put in place are, and what some of the fundamentals of that philosophy are, and why those fundamentals are fundamentally flawed. The first tenet of most conservative economic talking points tends to be, and this is one that you actually hear a lot in a way, even on national television, and that is that debt is bad, and that American debt is doubly bad, and like triply bad is the impact it will have on our grandchildren. We're just passing the buck along to our grandchildren. I mean, it might be great for us. We might get everything that we need. We might actually be able to live without suffering for a generation. But our grandchildren, think of the grandchildren. But even in personal finances and economics, you can't really pass debt onto the future generations. You can only pass along wealth. So, what's stopping us on the federal level from building some wealth this generation to pass along to the future generations? Well, I guess we should try to figure out what the national debt is. And who owns it? I mean, they tell us that it is practically a matter of national security that we pay off the debt because all of these people, we owe favors. Serious favors. China's gonna come calling, folks. China is gonna get in here with that debt they owe, and they're gonna do something about it. Yeah, it's serious, folks. I mean, think about it. Who owns U.S. debt? Well, I have it on good authority that most U.S. debt is owned by American billionaires. I know. They're not even mostly Chinese. They're American and billionaires. They should be above reproach, right? Well, actually, no. One of the biggest owners of U.S. national debt is Jeff Bezos. Another big owner of national debt is Elon Musk. These are the people that our country will be beholden to if we continue to allow them to hold so much U.S. debt. And actually, you should be concerned about that. But I kind of avoided one of the questions there, and that is, what is U.S. debt? Like, on a fundamental level, what is it? What does it mean? Well, what if I told you that you probably have some U.S. debt? I picked this up at the grocery store, but you could probably find some U.S. debt in your couch cushions. If you look under the floor mats in your car, you can probably find some U.S. debt. There's probably, hopefully, U.S. debt in your bank account. And at least one of your pockets, if you have any, also probably has some U.S. debt in it. At least I'd hope so. So, if this is U.S. debt, then how can the government pay that off? You know, like, this is because this is usually the thing that you pay off debt with. So, how do they pay off this $20 here? Well, it used to be that they could pay it off in gold, or at least that I could go to a federal bank and say, hey, I would like $20 worth of gold, please. Then it became exchangeable for silver. We actually had special silver certificates for a while, and those could be traded for silver, as the name implies. And then Nixon, actually, if you want to complain about who got us off the gold standard, it was a Republican. I think it was a great decision, actually. It's one of the few things, other than protecting our nation's kidneys and the EPA that I will give Nixon credit for. But that also means that this doesn't really have anything that I can exchange it to the government for, except maybe like stamps. I could pay my taxes with it, I guess. So how would you pay all this off? And is that even a good idea? I mean, you would have to take all of the U.S. currency out of every market for the U.S. to pay off all of its debts. Like, you're making the argument that there should be no U.S. dollars. I don't think that's what you intend. I'm pretty sure this just comes from a misunderstanding of what U.S. debt is, or an attempt to scaremonger in bad faith about it. I'm pretty sure they don't want to take away all U.S. money entirely. I guess if you had enough, you could, like, get a portion of a government building. Like, you could have a corner to sleep in the government building in exchange for, like, your life savings. Yeah. Government paying off that debt sounding better and better all the time, isn't it? So let's talk about the next thing, taxes. taxes. Really, the only thing that I can trade this to the government for is paying my tax obligations. And, you know, stamps. I could buy a lot of stamps. As has been the presidential policy of the last 2 Republican and conservative presidents, taxes for the rich under Republican conservative rule tends to drop quite precipitously, giving the rich even more and more money and driving our deficits up. Actually, it's wild how Republicans come into office complaining about the size of the national debt and always end up blowing it up. Not necessarily because they spend more than their Democratic counterparts. It's because they essentially force the government to take a huge pay cut. So, when your first 2 economic principles are pay off the national debt and eliminate all taxes, you see how these ideas don't fit together well, right? Like, you cannot do both of these things simultaneously? You probably shouldn't do either of these things at all, but doing both of them simultaneously is an intellectual paradox. I mean, really, if these are the people that you're getting your economic advice from, you might want to reconsider that, because they are not well informed on the subject. And now, let's get to the most recent, because these are really classic examples of Republicans and conservatives not understanding how economics works. You want to hear a recent one? Oh my god. Slavery is bad, actually. I heard this flipping through the channels on the radio, and I was like, okay. Bold. Bold claim. Let's hear how you back that up. And it was this, that slavery is forcing someone to do something without compensation, and that if I am entitled to medical coverage, healthcare in fact, but that I should not have to pay for that medical coverage, then I am in fact forcing a doctor to do slavery. I am forcing a doctor into slavery. Guys, like, you know that the left still plans to pay doctors, right? Like, yeah, we, the individual citizens, aren't going to pay for it except with a nominal tax increase, but the government is definitely going to keep paying doctors under Medicare for All. And it's no wonder they're using this slavery is bad, okay? Kind of like framing, because first it makes it hard to attack. So you're saying slavery's good, right? So you think it's slavery? We should do a slavery. You think that America should do a slavery right now, huh, bruh? Bruh? No, this is not right. But also it allows them to have plenty of words to say without really having the viewership address this idea of, wait, you mean Medicare for All means that no one is going to pay doctors for their labor? Because that's the premise. That is what would make it slavery. If we forced all the doctors in America to work for no pay because we thought we were entitled to their labor without paying them money. You know, the wild thing is, I was actually able to source the origin of this claim. At least as far as I can tell, it seems to come from Rand Paul, which isn't surprising on a number of levels, but it is surprising that Rand Paul, before he became a full-time liar, was a physician. So, as a former doctor of sorts, you would think that he would understand how doctors are compensated.
With regard to the idea of whether or not you have a right to a health care, You have to realize what that implies. It's not an abstraction. I'm a physician. That means you have a right to come to my house and conscript me. It means you believe in slavery. It means that you're going to enslave not only me, but the janitor at my hospital, the person who cleans my office, the assistants who work in my office, the nurses. If you have a right to their services, basically once you imply a belief in a right to someone's services, do you have a right to plumbing? Do you have a right to water? Do you have a right to food? You're basically saying that you believe in slavery. You're saying you believe in taking and extracting from another person. Our founding documents were very clear about this. You have a right to pursue happiness, but there's no guarantee of physical comfort. There's no guarantee of concrete items. In order to give something concrete or someone service, you got to take it from someone. So there's an implied threat of force. If I'm a physician in your community and you say you have a right to health care, do you have a right to beat down my door with the police, escort me away, and force me to take care of you?
But, like, he doesn't? I mean, I guess he's a better liar than he is a doctor. Also, fun fact, he says it while he's sitting next to Bernie Sanders, which I'm just really surprised that you don't see a hand coming across the table like towards the end of it. Honestly, I think if Bernie Sanders had bitch slapped Rand Paul, both of them, just the whole family, line them up, you know, probably would have won the election. I mean, let's face it, Joe Biden never slapped Ron Paul or Rand Paul or any of the Pauls. I mean, you'd have to institute slavery. At some point, like, the doctors would just quit working, right? Like, if your job suddenly paid nothing, would you still do it? No. So, yes, slavery is bad. No, Medicare for All is not slavery. And to answer the question that you wouldn't even put into words, yes, under Medicare for All, we still plan to pay doctors. In fact, the majority of hospitals are already publicly owned. This is already the way that medicine works, for the most part. The state pays the doctors provide medical care. That's how it works. And that's not slavery. And if you think that's slavery, then you don't actually understand what slavery is. Which isn't surprising. It's, conservatives have never had a good grasp on that concept. Because they seem to think that everything is slavery but slavery. I don't know. So just to recap, eliminate all national debt, completely abolish it. Abolish national debt. No more national debt. No one should have the ability to hold national debt. Also, there shouldn't be any taxes, except for those that are there to collect all of the national debt from our pockets, I guess. I really don't understand how that works. But also, getting healthcare is a form of slavery that we seriously need to talk about. Because you know how when you pay a doctor to perform a service, that is the same as... I don't know where I'm going with this, honestly. I need an outro. This video needs to end. Well, I'm still Jackie Fox. This was still Fox Talks. There's some credits coming up soon. I'm gonna thank my lovely patrons. And you, if you happen to be one of those patrons, or if you're thinking about giving this channel your patronage, I would really appreciate it. Because, especially in the making of this video, I had to search through a lot of conservative talking points to find clips for shit that I just randomly hear driving around on the radio, and while I actually enjoy arguing with radio on these things, that was not a joyful process. So, hey man, send me like some American debt. I mean, since we're trying to get rid of it, just send it all to me. I will take all of the American debt. $5 at a time, if need be. So conservatives, do your part. Send me $5 to eliminate some of your American debt. At the end of the video, I would like to say thank you to all the people who support this channel. And I would also like to mention that there are other channels quite like this one that are still under 1,000 subscribers that you should check out. Here's a list. If you like this content, maybe you'll like them as well. If you want to help this channel out and be like the people I mentioned up front, you can donate on Patreon if you would like to make a recurring monthly donation, or if you just want to give me a quick tip, you can go over to Ko-fi.